Hi, my name is Lindsay Poirier. I'm an assistant professor of statistical and data sciences at Smith College, and the paper that I'm presenting for FACT is called Accountable Data, the Politics and Pragmatics of Disclosure Datasets. So this paper attends specifically to what I call disclosure datasets, or tabular datasets that aggregate information produced and reported by the same institutions they're meant to hold accountable. And because the values reported in disclosure datasets can lead to adverse actions, either formal or informal, taken against the reporting institutions, there are institutionalized incentives to misreport and develop creative accounting strategies around the data. And this paper traces the socio-political provenance of disclosure dataset infrastructure, and it contributes to literature calling for critical inquiry into the genealogies of datasets, as well as literature calling for critical readings and ethnographies of datasets. And the analysis poses important questions regarding the representativeness and usefulness of these accountability mechanisms. So I begin by briefly reviewing the methods I employed to study the socio-political provenance of 3 example disclosure datasets. Then I go on to introduce 3 case studies. First, the US Environmental Protection Agency's Emergency Planning and Community Right to Know Act of 1986 established the toxic release inventory as a mechanism to monitor and inform the public of toxic emissions released in their communities. Every year, certain US industrial facilities are required to report to the EPA the amounts of certain chemical on-site and off-site releases. Second, every time a New York City police officer stops an individual based on reasonable suspicion that they committed or were about to commit a crime, the officer is required to fill out a form documenting information about the stop, including the reason for the stop, the demographics of the individual stopped, and any actions taken during the stop. These reports get aggregated into a database that became available for public download in 2008. Finally, in order to ensure that financial institutions are in compliance with fair lending laws in the US, lenders are required to collect and report data on an applicant's ethnicity, race, gender, and income when they apply for a mortgage. And this is known as the Home Mortgage Disclosure Act. So in this paper, for each case study, I identify instances where the self-reported nature of the data, along with institutional incentives to misreport, led data collectors to develop creative accounting practices when reporting. I also identify 2 findings. First, that social advocacy renders the definitions underpinning disclosure datasets as malleable or subject to continual ontological change in response to shifting cultural values and political power. Often disclosure datasets become embroiled in big government versus small government political debates as certain stakeholders call for increasing institutional transparency and accountability, while others call for reducing regulatory burden. Second, in the published datasets, the unit of observation, or what distinguishes one row of data from the next, is not a person, institution, or activity, but a document representing information about those people, institutions, and activities. And the cultural histories underpinning these forms quite literally form the resulting data, shaping them according to the form's flow and structuration. I conclude that the lack of attention to the social and political provenance of disclosure datasets poses challenges to mobilizing the data effectively. And this suggests a need for further ethnographic research into disclosure dataset collection and infrastructure. So I hope you're able to tune into the paper, and I'm happy to answer any questions that come up.